Welcome to Keen on Retirement, a show dedicated to helping you thrive before and during your retirement years. If you are looking to grow and protect your wealth and want to make the second half of your life the best half, then listen in as Wealth Advisor Bill Keen sorts through the key issues that you need to know in a lively and candid way.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Keen on Retirement. I'm Steve. We've got Bill. We've got Matt. As almost always, I think in our last episode, we had Carissa visiting us, which was a wonderful treat. So we appreciate that. And great to have her on the episode talking about all the great charitable and philanthropy work that she's doing and what Keen Wealth is doing. So it's a great time talking to her. So awesome. But Matt, it's great to have you back. We missed you for the last episode, but great to see you.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Happy to be here.
Yes. Well, we're gonna keep talking about money here. So in that last episode with Krista, we talked about philanthropy and giving money away. Now maybe we're going to do the reverse, which is receiving money. So this could be you win the lottery. Of course, we all sort of dream about or fantasize about, well, gosh, what would happen if I won the lottery? And what would I do with the money? And would it change me? And will I lose friends or gain friends? Or will Uncle Eddie come out of the woodwork and be asking for something? So we're going to have a little bit of fun with that. And perhaps more likely is you receive a lump sum pension distribution, or perhaps you receive an inheritance. So there could be a variety of things where you might actually come into a significant amount of money. And there are definitely some things that you should be thinking about and be prepared for if that were to happen. So let's talk about that. And Bill, I think you've done a little bit of research here. You've had some clients who have certainly come into some money over the time for sure. But we've also seen lots of examples of people who have won the lottery and didn't necessarily have a great outcome.
That's right. And, you know, the ones that are not the good outcomes, the tougher outcomes do get the publicity. And there's studies out there, and I don't know that the studies are not confirmed. You know, I've seen numbers as high as 30% to 70% of lottery winners purportedly going bankrupt within a short time frame, maybe 3 to 5 years or something of that nature. And again, those studies aren't confirmed. So here's the way I would approach it. If anyone that receives, doesn't matter the percentage of the folks that receive a lump sum, whether it's a lottery win or, like you said, an inheritance, or even someone that's saved over the course of their lives, and they now are at that point, as you mentioned, Steve, where they're going to now have access to several $1 million or more, significantly more at retirement. So they now have, maybe that money was in a company plan, an ESOP, or like you mentioned, a pension lump sum or a profit sharing. And they didn't necessarily, or they didn't have access to it, and they weren't necessarily in control of it per se over the course of their careers. But now they get to that point, and their new job, I would say, would be now making sure that they're good stewards of those resources. So even in that case, where this now you're tasked with taking this large amount of money and making it last the rest of your life and being a good steward. So whatever it is, I think the interesting thing that folks think about is this lottery winner concept, where, you know, you think about what that would do to your life and what you could do with those resources. Well, there was a gentleman named William Post who won $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery, but within 1 year he was $1 million in debt. And he was quoted as saying, "I wish it had never happened. It was a total nightmare." He goes on to say a former girlfriend successfully sued him for a third of his winnings, and his brother was arrested and later convicted, according to Post's obituary, for hiring a hitman to kill him and his then wife in hopes that he'd inherit a share of the winnings. So after sinking money into a family business, Post sank into debt and spent time in jail for firing a gun over the head of a bill collector, and finally said he was much happier when he was broke. Said he lived quietly on $450 a month in food stamps until his death. So that's kind of I would say that's kind of an extreme example. There was another one that I saw as well. that was Susan Mullins won $4.2 million in a Virginia lottery. She split the yearly payments 3 ways with her husband and daughter, leaving Mullins with about $47,000 a year. She quickly found herself in debt. Her lawyer said she shelled out $1 million for her uninsured son-in-law's medical bills, and said it's not been jet plane trips to the Bahamas. So one thing that folks can do, even if they take out instead of taking the lump sum, in this case, she took some of this money annually. Well, they can double back. You think if you take a lump sum, or if you take a yearly payout as opposed to the lump sum, that at least you can't spend it all at once. Well, believe it or not, there are companies out there that will loan you money against your guaranteed payout in the future. So in this particular case, she used future payouts to take a large loan with a company that did just that, and then tried to later switch to a lump sum payout, but never paid the debt back. They filed a suit against her for a large settlement, and within just a couple of years, she was indeed bankrupt as well. So, I could go on through the list of folks that I studied here, but I thought that it would be interesting to talk a little bit about some of the things that these folks did wrong, and then how to do it right. I think that's more importantly, we always want our episodes, we're a financial planning show, we're a retirement planning show. We want our episodes to be on the upbeat and not just looking at what people do wrong, although it is important to see the mistakes folks make and learn from them, but also talk about what was it that they did wrong, what series of events caused the downfalls, and then what to do right, more importantly.
That's right.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so much in personal finance is not about how intelligent you are or how great of an investor you are. It's how you behave. And I think that's, the key takeaway with the things that we're going to discuss today, because how you behave has so much more of an impact on what happens with your resources than what happens with the stock market or the tax policy at the time. It's just understanding that, and lottery winners are this sudden wealth. That's another way of putting it. If you don't have experience from, the journey, that can be difficult to quantify for people, because some lessons you have to experience, and hopefully you experience them when the consequences are much smaller and can recover from them, or you learn from your mistakes, as so many of us do. But when you have a huge pile of money just kind of sat down in front of you, that can be difficult, and those mistakes can be very big, as Bill's already mentioned.
Well, Matt, I write about that in the book, and I talk about we learn. How do we learn? We learn from making mistakes.
Yep.
When do you learn the most? When the mistakes are bigger and more costly. And so my point in the book, Keen on Retirement, was when someone's toward the end of their working life, they do not have 40 years to make it back. If they make a big mistake, that is not the time to be learning from big mistakes. So to your point, on the front end of your career, fine. Maybe, right? Or maybe, ideally, you learn from other people's mistakes.
That's right.
But that's easier said than done for a lot of folks. But I do love that, what you said there. And there's a maturity. You have to be ready for the resources. You have to be ready emotionally. You have to have technical expertise. And if you don't have it personally, you have to get the right people around you that will help you, hold you accountable. But you have to have that maturity to be ready to have the resource. And in this world we live in today, with the financial markets and all the news media and all the solicitations that are coming at everyone for all kinds of different investments, a lot of which are scams, that money will, if you're not ready for it, you don't have the maturity for it, it will take wings and fly away. And the examples I read were just two of so many that are out there. So,
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that I think has been debated to some extent in the financial community, because obviously financial advisors work with people who get a sudden windfall of money and trying to figure out, okay, well, what's the best way to work with these folks? So one question is, if you do get a big sum of money, and in this case, I'm talking like life-changing money, multi-millions of dollars.
sure.
Does it actually change the person who received it, or does it just make them more of who they already were? So if I was a person who just loved to spend money and I, oftentimes spent above my means, if I inherit millions, I'm probably just going to, now I got more money, so I can spend more money. So I'm going to be more of a spender. Or if I was someone who was more conservative and like to save money, if I get a big windfall, am I just going to save the majority of it? So what's your guys' experience
Or
been?
philanthropic, if you were
Or
philanthropic,
or give it away? Yeah. Is it just make you more of who you already were, or will it actually change you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've seen it over 34 years in this industry. And just being on the journey, like Matt says, where money makes you more of who you were already, and I think that's a very powerful thing that you said there. I do see that playing out, but I also think that you can you can change it, but the odds are maybe against you. But I do think that you could change if you're fortunate enough to be able to have the resources and the insight to see that. And a lot of times that's why working with financial planners and advisors, fiduciary advisors that have a client's best interest in mind. Look, we tell people what they need to hear. We do not tell people what they want to hear. Hopefully what they need and what they want are the same.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases they are. But if they're not, a good advisor will tell you and hold you accountable to the things that you should be doing. And that could be a wake-up call. That could be, if you had good legal counsel and a good advisory team, and you were fortunate enough to be open-minded to this, I don't think it's just total doomsday for someone that doesn't have wisdom from the journey, as Matt put it, that comes into resources. Because we know not everybody that wins the lottery goes bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. Certainly not. There are some wonderful success stories. So I do think that it's coachable if you are coachable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and especially the younger someone is, where it just amplifies who you are. That's definitely more prevalent. Now we have seen this. Now I wouldn't say it's people that have just come into a sudden sum of money. But we have seen clients who, I mean, they've worked their 40 plus years and they've saved and they've been diligent savers, and they start off really being thrifty and not wanting to spend. And through the planning process and over time, just understanding the wealth that they have and the opportunities that are available to them, whether it's gifting to charities, organizations, or to family members. We do see people change in that aspect, but that's different than just inheriting or receiving lottery winnings or even like professional athletes. Those are ones they're young and they get a lot of money thrown at them. And, those stats you said earlier, Bill, I mean, I think there is studies that are done on professional athletes, and many of them are in bad financial shape kind of post their playing career, because one, the careers don't last very long. And two, it's easy to go through a lot of money when you're in your early 20s.
Yep, that's a great point. And I had some experience working with, some professional athletes earlier in my career, and the idea of a financial plan that indicates a spending limitation and those kind of things, it can be really, really hard to follow for certain folks. And you mentioned another one. It just popped into my mind is, and I have worked with folks over many years that have actually won large settlements, like personal injury settlements. That's another common way that someone that might not have had resources would immediately come into resources as well.
Yeah.
Is that?
So I think let's get some specific things here. And I think maybe a good way to look at this is there's the sudden unexpected windfall. So you win the lottery. Okay. Yeah, I hope I win, but I'm not expecting that I'm going to win. So you've probably done no preparation ahead of that. And then there's a second type where I'm anticipating an inheritance. I don't know when I'm going to receive it. Someone has to pass away. It could be 5 years from now, but I know it's coming. So are there some things that I can do? So tell me a little bit about, I know some money's coming. I don't know when it's coming. It could be life-changing. What should I be doing in that scenario? And then the second scenario is it's totally sudden. It was unexpected. Uncle Frank left me $10 million and I didn't know it was coming. And like, what do I do in that case when I had no preparation time?
Yeah. Under the first scenario, I mean, the reality is, and people probably don't want to hear this, but it's like, don't count on it.
Yeah.
So, if it's an inheritance that even if you're fairly confident it's coming, it's like, well, what if it doesn't? Or what are you doing in the meantime? Are you just sitting there waiting for it? Or are you actually just preparing yourself for the situation where it doesn't come? Because
don't spend it in advance.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, in our financial planning process, so imagine thousands of people we've counseled over so many years. We typically will be aware of what might be coming, even for folks that have taken care of their own resources very well. But we typically don't count that in their plan specifically for the relevance of what they're capable of as folks. And it also reminds me too, Matt, of when families decide to share their resources with the next generation. So we do a lot of family meetings here at Keen where we'll bring in the next generation when the client and we collectively feel like it's time for them to understand just how would things work if something happened. But in nearly all of the cases, the clients are choosing not to share numbers.
Yeah.
They're choosing not to share numbers because I'm in this boat, in this camp with the folks that choose not to share exact numbers because I started with not a whole lot and it was a little tough growing up and all that. So I had to go out and stake my claim in the world and I didn't have a choice. I've shared, I had to support my parents right out of college. And it was stressful at the time, yes, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because I didn't have a choice. I had to figure out what I wanted to focus on in life and go do it. And I didn't want to rob my kids of them having that same experience. And they know they were raised a little bit differently than maybe I was, but they've all gone out and they've done extremely well on their own. They don't need me. I don't say they don't need me. I mean, we have a great relationship. I'm just saying they don't need the money.
They're not sitting there waiting for it.
And they didn't wait around. I mean, to do that. And so I'm very fortunate there and blessed with that myself. But that's one thing about, to your question, Steve, about knowing something might be coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done an episode on that failure to launch. It's been a long time because that was in the news, making a lot of headlines many years ago. And it was just about that younger generation not moving out of the house and not adulting at the time.
That's what the term was. Yeah, the adulting.
And what can cause that, and how can you prevent that, and even supporting adult kids. Even if they're not sharing dollars in terms of here's our net worth, but you're providing access to your resources because you're bailing them out or you're paying for things that maybe they should start to pay for and have some sense of responsibility for. And that can, create its own set of problems too for the next generation.
It could stunt their ability to go support themselves, but in some cases, extreme cases, it can actually compromise their own retirement plan as well. And we've had to have some conversations in those cases too, we say we have family meetings. There's been some cases that we actually would act as, I don't want to say the bad guy, but it just helped. Maybe that's what we were perceived as, but it was just laying out kind of the factual information about how this certain level of support just can't go on. And look, we respect everybody's journey. And so again, not to paint any one person or situation into any type of a box, because we know it's hard out there. It's hard to make it. It's hard to go out and be self-supporting. I mean, it just is. And so we have a respect for each person's individual situation, but these are just sometimes hard things to talk about, but it's good to talk about them because, it can make all the difference in the world for both generations, actually.
So let's talk about the sudden windfall. And let's just say it's $25 million. Okay. I think for most of us, that would be life-changing money. So let's say that happens. What are some of the initial things that you guys would advise that person do to make sure that that money becomes sustainable and not something that they blow within a short period of time?
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to write down on a piece of paper what I think you're going to say, Matt, for our listeners and our YouTube. See, if you're on YouTube watching this, then you'll see that I wrote this down just now. And so I'm going to say, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, Matt? Let's just see. We've been working together for 24 years.
Yeah.
Let's see if this is like the newlywed game, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know, but I think I'm going to stump you on this one.
The answer is,
well, all right. Now maybe you should be thinking, what might I say? Maybe that's what you should be thinking, which would accomplish the same thing. So you receive all this money, you get notified you're going to get it. What's the first thing you should do or not do? Maybe that would be a way to, I'm not trying to give you hints. What do you think I'm going to say?
So if you won the lottery, so this is in this example, if you can, and it's based on the state you live in, stay anonymous.
And for our YouTube watchers,
put it up. What's it say?
Confidential.
I wrote the word confidential down on a piece of paper.
Yeah. I'll count that.
Do you count that? So if we had our sound effect machine like we did before years ago.
Oh yeah, we need to get that out.
Be the ding, positive ding.
I need to let me I think I deleted that from my phone because I needed to free up some space.
In Missouri and Kansas, you can remain anonymous.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of other, I think there's like 12 states you can remain completely anonymous. And I don't know if this was real or not, but this was before all the AI images. I do remember seeing a lottery winner dressed in the Scream costume, accepting their lottery winnings. And it might have been a state that you couldn't remain anonymous, which, everyone would know who it is, but they put the Scream mask on and a black kind of cape because they just didn't want to be photographed as the winner. But if you can remain anonymous, that would help your cause significantly, because that'll keep people from coming out of the woodwork and coming at you with whatever it is. If it's family members looking for money, everyone's got a business idea, the next best thing, all of that can be, it can drain those resources very quickly.
Yeah, some of the ones that I did not read at the start of the show had to do with people's lives being destroyed by, whether it was family, whether it was acquaintances from high school, whether it was just random people from all over. And then, of course, the scammers. I mean, the scammers do you think they're not looking for these types of things?
Right.
And, you're speaking of lottery winnings now. I mean, we talked about, hopefully you could keep your retirement savings confidential. You could really likely keep a settlement from like some sort of a civil suit or some sort of a personal injury suit. You likely would be a confidential settlement. So other inheritances should be kept confidential as well. So and keeping it confidential, is that talking about the money, or is it the way that you're making a meaningful difference in the way you're living your life as well? Because you might not say it, but people can see it. If you go from driving one type of car to something exotic and those types of things. So.
I mean, we advise people, don't quit your job yet. Might be difficult, but don't do that.
Yes.
because that would, also maybe
Be a
tip some
signal
people
that,
off.
oh, I got a
Yeah.
lot of money. I
And
don't
then,
need this job anymore.
Yeah. And two, have a cooling off period where you're just acting as if nothing changed. Now, again, is that possible? But you've got to start that way, because that will just allow it to season and not make any major decisions. I mean, one, you're going to have to pay taxes.
That's
So you
right.
got to figure out how much that is and how much you need to set aside for it, because that's not going away. We know that for a fact. And, it all counts as income. So that's, if it's $25 million, you can say, half of it's going to taxes
Practically.
right off the top.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they'll withhold some, but they may not withhold enough if you choose the lump sum payout. So it's not just because that's what they gave you means your taxes are covered.
That's
A lot
right.
of times I think it's like 25%, which may only be half of it.
Yeah. So along those lines, I think one of the key things, obviously, that they should be doing is they need to develop their team. Like, who are
That's
the
right.
advisors they're going to work with that are going to give them the advice on the taxes? So what would you guys recommend in terms of who should you have on the team to
Mhm.
begin with? And then who's like the first person that you should try and get on the team of all the potential types of advisors you should be working with?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, I mean, one of the first things to do is to find a CFP, certified financial professional, certified financial planner. So it's a professional designation. Our team, we have them here, who have fiduciary responsibility to do what's in your best interest. And part of what they're going to do is help figure out a lot of the financial planning aspects of it. And then added to that team should be a tax professional, most likely a CPA, which a CFP would should know, and should know who to talk to. And the same with an attorney as well, whether it's drafting the estate plan documents. Just, you don't have to have everything figured out, but just, okay, what type of kind of legal documents need to be in place, as you go through this process. You don't have to have, again, all these decisions figured out right away, but sitting down with the CFP to figure out, okay, I've got this lump sum of money. How can I make it last the rest of my life? And what are the things that I need to be aware of from a budgeting and planning standpoint?
And when I love the team there you assembled, Matt, and the estate attorney working directly with the financial advisory, the fiduciary financial planning firm, along with the tax professional, looking at things like liability. So maybe before you didn't have any assets, liability wasn't an issue for you. Well, now liability becomes an issue. So making sure things are entitled correctly, up to even over into just the day that the money arrives. Where does it land? Does it land in your local bank account? Or does it land somewhere that you're very confident of? And what will happen day one? I think that's extremely important. So that team is just number one. And to speak to what I said earlier about holding you accountable to what you said you wanted, and being a voice of reason, protecting you from others and yourself, with all due respect, especially in those early years. And you mentioned, Matt, that cooling off period. I think you said 6 months or a year or so. I mean, that's such good advice. I mean, we give that advice to people that are going through any major life transition, to just take a breath and try to lean into that maturity that I was talking about earlier. And if you don't have it, to develop some of it before you take some of the next steps forward. Really get some clarity on things.
Yeah, and you need to set okay, you go through that. You find a CFP, you start working with the right professionals, and again, a CFP, they'll walk you through these things. But another key aspect is setting boundaries, not only really for yourself, so you can say no. So it's like, well, what are the gifting boundaries that I'm going to hold myself to? I mean, one, what's possible, but two, okay, if you're want to be charitable, that's great, but you can't be charitable with all of it.
I suppose
I
you
mean,
could
you
if you
can.
really wanted to, and that was
Yeah.
what you thought, and you do it with, that was your plan, and more power to you if that is what your
That's
plan
right. I
was.
mean, you can do whatever you want, but
Mhm.
let's say you want to make sure this money lasts for the rest of your life too. Well, okay, what percentage on an annual basis or what dollar amount
Mhm.
should you use? Well, I mean, again, set those boundaries, because then okay, if I've spent that or if I've gifted that, now the answer's it's no. It's just, hey, I've hit my limit for the year. I can't
Yep.
do any more this year.
Don't
Along-
really have to explain
along
what
those-
that means either. You just
Yeah.
can, that end of conversation right there. Yep.
Along those lines, one thing that I've seen happen too is rather than the person who got the windfall being the bad person and having to say no, let's say
Yeah.
people are now coming to you and they want you to invest in their business. They want you to
Yep.
donate money to this charity. Well, you set up like a separate board of 2 or 3 people that you trust and say, hey, I don't make those decisions. I've got a board over here. You've got to go through the board, and then they're the ones that determine what's going to be done or not be done. That way you can sort of blame the board and not say, I'm telling you no. It's like, well, the board did, and I've empowered them to make those kinds of decisions. Now, you may be chairman of the board, so you could ultimately make the decision and you want to see what's going on. But I think that's another way to sort of shield yourself from potential bad feelings if you're telling a lot of people no.
Yeah. And if you don't, and you may not be that, that versed on, okay, is this a good idea or not? Because again, you're probably going to get a lot of people coming at you with a lot of ideas. And if you put the right team together, like you said, Steve, well, let's run your business idea around them and let's see what they say. I mean, that right there will pretty much seethe out any scams, because the scammers probably aren't even going to take that extra step. But then too, the professionals will see right through that. And then that also prevents all the friends and family with all the next greatest business idea of taking advantage of you, who don't have, they might have a great idea, but have no way of actually executing on it.
Right. Now, what do you think about having I'm going to call it a therapist, a life coach, a psychologist? I mean, someone who can talk about the emotional side of all of this money and what does it mean, and what's my purpose in life if if I was really wrapped up in my work and I no longer need to work anymore. Should I stop working? And if so, well, then what am I going to do with my life? Or should I just keep working because I really like my work, even though I don't need to work? It's like, who do you talk to have those questions?
Steve, we have that exact conversation with nearly every single client that we work with.
Yeah.
Because they get to that point in their lives where just exactly what you said is what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
A lot of times
retiring
they love
to something.
Dude, remember we talked about even Carissa, even the lovely Carissa had that phrase. She's listened to a lot of our shows, or she intuitively knew it. What are you retiring to? Not just what are you retiring from? And you've said that for many years, Steve. At least 20 years ago, I think I heard you say that the first time. So that is something, and that I think everyone that gets to this stage in life has to figure out, and it can be incredibly empowering as folks work through those things where they really are things they're very passionate about. Seeking wise counsel, certainly in the case of this unfounded, unexpected wealth, 100%. Seeking wise counsel from a trusted professional in that field, without question. I think I can't imagine them not being a part of, maybe not as an intense part as the team, as the financial folks. But I said earlier, the maturity and the emotion, remember the emotional maturity, be able to handle wealth. Well, that speaks exactly to what you just said, getting aware of your strengths and your limitations around the emotional aspect of this, and having a wise counselor walk you through that. I would be all for it.
Well, I know there's probably 20 different things that you'd recommend in terms of what people should do if they get a big windfall of money. Have we hit some of the major ones? And if you do these things, you're probably going to be on a good track. Or are there any other items that are like, okay, really need to make sure that this happens too, that we may not have touched on?
I think all this culminates in the same message that we have on nearly every show because we believe in it so much, and we've gotten to see it, myself for 30 plus years, Matt for 20 plus years, having a comprehensive financial plan in place that is incorporates every aspect of someone's life. Does money buy happiness? In and of itself, it doesn't buy happiness. But I could tell you that having your resources handled and being a good steward of your resources, understanding the limitations of your resources and living within those limitations can help you feel so much better about enjoying the resources that you have. So done correctly, yes, I actually do think that it can bring more happiness into our lives if we're intentional about it. And remember, it's funny because every client that we work with, I just had a conversation this morning in a meeting with someone who'd been with us 15 years, Matt, and they said that one time in a lunch seminar, they heard me say that you get to a point in your life, nearly every client that we work with, I'm trying to think of one that doesn't fit this, started with nothing and lived within their means over the course of a career. They were good stewards of their resources, and whatever financial plan they had, whatever retirement plan, whatever company they worked for, and they get to a point in their life where there's that crossover point where they realize that another year of work, another year of life is not worth the time. The time now has become the priceless commodity, and they make that decision that and the planning plays out correctly, and we're confident that they're in a good position and they're able to be what I call independently wealthy. And he remembered that. He remembered that Bill said that you get to a point in life where you're able to retire, and that's called being independently wealthy. That sounds kind of like a hoity-toity term there, but essentially, if you get to a point where you're not saving anymore, you're actually living on the fruits of your labors, and it's now paying you. You've saved enough your money pays you enough with Social Security and other income that you may have to never have to work again if you choose not to. And that is called being independently wealthy. That's right. And it's fun to kind of talk about that. But the key to it all is not operating out willy-nilly, for lack of a better term. Just having a plan, knowing exactly where you should fall within the guardrails, and not having to obsess on it every day and week. Coming back together with your advisor, updating them on things that change in your life that are meaningful. We have a 90-day contact rule at Keen. We talk to our clients at least every 90 days to just make sure there's not something that's happened we should know about that would affect their plan. And we meet regularly throughout the year, updating the plan, keeping it exacting to that point in time that we meet. And then life changes and you have to get back together. It's a never-ending process, but that is the key. Taxes, the estate planning, how much we're spending, how we're allocated in the investments. Regulations are changing, markets are changing, but with a plan in place, we can be ready for whatever tomorrow brings if we commit that little bit of time each year to partner with the right professionals. So I think that's really the bow on this episode today, Steve. I think that's the key to it all that pulls it all together.
Excellent. All right. Well, we will wrap it there. And for each of you listening, if you'd like to learn more, please visit us at keenwealthadvisors.com. If you have any questions or comments about this, please let us know as well. Make sure you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Leave comments on it. We'd love to hear from you, and appreciate y'all being a listener, and appreciate you sharing our program with all of your friends and colleagues as well. So till next time, we'll see you on the next episode of Keen on Retirement.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Matt.
The Steve Sandusky Advisor Network and Belay Advisor are not affiliated with Keen Wealth Advisors. Opinions expressed by Steve are his own and not necessarily the opinions of Keen Wealth Advisors. Keen Wealth Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Keen Wealth Advisors and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. The contents of this podcast are intended for the residents of the United States of America. No advice may be rendered by Keen Wealth Advisors unless a client service agreement is in place. This program is intended for informational purposes only and should not be construed as advice on or a recommendation of any particular investment, strategy, or as tax or legal advice for your specific situation. Keen Wealth Advisors is not a tax or legal advisor. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your licensed professional prior to investing.
Information in this program was compiled from sources believed to be reliable. Due to the constant state of data changing, we do not guarantee the timeliness or the accuracy of the information provided. Our views or opinions at the time you are listening to the podcast may be different than they were when the podcast was recorded. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any prices that are referenced or market forecasts are as of the date stated and are not necessarily our opinions moving forward. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. This podcast is not allowed to be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced without permission from Keen Wealth Advisors.